Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening for everybody, wherever you are watching from. Here in rainy Vancouver, it is a reasonable temperature day, but sadly it is chucking down rain, which is good, I guess. Let me know what the weather is like wherever you are. So we have got a lot of topics today, and again, if you're watching this on the replay, thanks for tuning in. And I will put the chapters in the description. So if there's anything you want to skip ahead to, you can. And you can also see all the topics that we've covered today. So here's our list of stuff that's going on. By the way, as I fiddle with this, I just want to do a shout out to the shops in Saint Martin. I bought this earlier this year on a cruise we were in St. Thomas. And you know, when you're on a cruise and you see you get the promos they hand out the promos and stuff like that because they want you to come into their shops. And, there's always an Effie promo where you can get a free charm or, free stuff. And we saw that they had a palm tree that was a fake little, I think it was gold plated palm tree, or it might not have been, but it was just a cute little thing. And it wasn't free. I think it was $20. And I thought, well, that's the perfect thing. I like to have a little charm on my necklace, but it's a perfect thing for traveling because you don't want to wear your real stuff. And I couldn't. Oh, this was the cruise that I did with Tammy. Tammy went in and she found a shop that had them. I went on my own afterwards, and for love nor money could I find this shop. I did find one, and they had this one, and it's just cubics, and I think it's gold plated. It was $50 because of the gold plating. And in fairness, so Tammy bought one, the cheaper one, and she said it's starting to tarnish already. Whereas this one, I've been wearing it more than I should. I'm trying to just keep it for when I'm on vacation, but I like the fact that it's got the gold on it and, matching my gold earrings, whatever. Um, and I like the palm trees, so I've been wearing it more than I should. But flash forward 6 months from purchasing, and it's not tarnished at all. So, Saint Martin, it's by the shop that they sell uh, beer cozies as well as those follow bracelets, FAHLO, which I showed you guys before. I don't have any right beside me, of course. But if you find the shop that has the follow bracelets where you buy the bracelet and you get access to a QR code where you can track various animals like a dolphin or a whale or a sea turtle or a sloth. Don't ever choose the one that's going to follow a sloth because they move literally like 3 inches a day. Super boring. Um, and yeah, and like I said, this has been a quality purchase. Oh, Tammy's saying it wasn't that it didn't tarnish, but she lost a diamond. Um, yeah, so oh well, it's always fun. It's fun to pick up different stuff when you're in port. But yeah, I highly recommend. I'll see if I can find a map of St. Thomas, of the cruise port, and I'll actually do like maybe I'll do a blog post or I'll do a community post so that if you're taking a cruise and you happen to go into that port, you can check it out because it's always nice to know when you can get a quality purchase because you just never know. Just spend $1,000 on a diamond necklace and then find out that it's cubics. uh, you takes your chances, right? All right, so moving on to our first topic. You can keep your shoes on. And I did that just thinking of the song, You Can Keep Your Hat On. So there's been a couple of changes over the last few days with regards to some of the not necessarily TSA airport security, but worldwide, where they're starting to do some changes. So in Europe, well, actually, sorry, starting in LaGuardia and the Baltimore Washington airport, they are doing a trial where people can keep their shoes on. So when you're going through airport security, instead of having to, undo your laces, take off your sandals, sandals are the worst. because they just, unless they're Velcro like walking sandals, they take forever. But since 2006, travelers have been having to do that. Now, we're lucky in Canada because they loosened the restrictions many years ago, like maybe a decade ago. And of course, if you have TSA pre-check or Nexus, you could keep your shoes on as you go through security. And in fact, the TSA pre-check, that was, they were hailing that as one of the reasons to buy the expedited access, is so that you didn't have to take off your shoes and walk on the grimy floor at the airports. I mean, in fairness, I think it used to be, I think, $50 for 5 years. 100% worth it just for that alone. Um, but they are, like I said, they're doing a trial now. They've got new scanners, as they constantly try to get better scanning materials and stuff like that. And with this, that now they're saying that you would not have to take your shoes off, which is kind of nice. Um, Wax my skin. Oh, that's, by the way, I don't know my light on. That's a bit better. Watch my skin turn green. Yeah. No, actually, it hasn't done that at all. So again, if I when I go back to St. Thomas, whether it's, well, I would have to be on a cruise because you can't get into this area unless you're on a cruise. Um, but I believe, think about that now. But anyways, when I go back, I would definitely buy more because quality works for me. So yeah, so that was the first thing. So like I said, LaGuardia and Baltimore airports, this is being trialed. So hopefully that'll spread to more airports. And then the other thing that's happening is with the liquids. What a pain this has been for so many years that you have to take your liquids, put them in a special small bag, can't be over 100 milliliters or 3 ounces. So now, and what's interesting is they're saying that we've had the scanners in many airports for some time now. And actually, last year, a few of the airports in Europe rolled back the liquid restrictions and they said, just go for it. And then I don't know if there was some issue, something got through or whatever, but they basically said, no, hold on a second, we're going back to the restrictions. Anyways, we are now back to a testing mode. So in Edinburgh and Birmingham, they do have the new machines, and they're putting them into operations. So liquid restrictions mean that you don't have to take your liquids out of your bags if you're flying out of either of these two airports, Edinburgh or Birmingham in the UK, and you can take up to 2 liters. Now, a lot of people will say if your stuff is frozen, you could take a bottle of water, but if it's frozen, it's allowed. But if it starts to melt, not allowed. So you can take a bottle of water, freeze it, and then if it starts to melt, basically you just need to sip the top of the liquid off anything that's loose, and you're good to go. Hey, John, I think this is your first time on here. I changed the font on this. I'm not sure if I like it. I think I'm gonna go back to default because that's funky, but it's hard to read. Okay, so John is saying, good evening, weather here in Yorkshire is dry and sunny 23. Nice. Coming week is sunny with temperatures between 26 and 29. Beer gardens, here we come. Now, okay, I guess my question is, what are your lows in the evening? Because the highs during the day, I think, are fine, but it's, in my opinion, critical to have that. Oh, and I should change this. There we go. There we go. I think it's important to have a fairly diverse temperature range. So right now, for example, here, and Angela, you could do the conversions because I'm rubbish at it. But right now, it's getting down to about 16 or 17 in the evenings, with daytime highs of between 22 and 26. Today, it's a rainy day, so it's a break from the heat, which is not bad. Um, but in my opinion, getting down to those lower temps in the evening makes for a really good sleep. Um, so yeah, I'm curious up in Yorkshire, what are your lows like? And Angela, same for you over in Chicago. What's your highs and lows like? Just out of curiosity, because that makes a lot of difference. Alrighty. Okay, back on track. Back on track. Vancouver poop cruise. Not 2 weeks since the Netflix documentary was aired or launched, and we had an incident this weekend, which is interesting. Obviously, it wasn't a big deal because I didn't even hear about it until this morning. But the Royal Caribbean Serenade of the Seas was on Sunday heading off to Alaska. And for those of you who know the area, it made it as far, well, Tammy will know, made it as far as Bowen Island. And apparently, one of the engines uh, crapped out. Couldn't resist that. Could not resist that. Um, yeah, so and then they basically were drifting, and they had to be apparently tugged back into Vancouver later that day. I wish I'd known because I would have gone down on Monday to check it out. Um, there's a couple of people on board who were posting on social media, and one of them who actually lives locally in Delta, she was commenting and saying, if it ends up being a poop cruise or whatever, she's just gonna swim home. But, like I said, they were in the port, so really it wasn't an issue other than they couldn't get off the ship because of customs rules, and that's the whole cabotage. And, if you're departing from one country, you can't return back as after going into international waters unless you stopped at a foreign port. Um, I mean, hopefully all that's gonna change because it really I mean, maybe in the 1800s, it made sense and it was important for trade and stuff like that, but now it's just getting in the way of us having fun, right? I mean, imagine, coming out to Vancouver and maybe doing a cruise to Victoria, to Vancouver Island, to Victoria, maybe Nanaimo, maybe up to, Campbell River or something, and then coming back to Vancouver. I think that would be really cool. Um, so it just would give us more options. If you're doing a repositioning cruise or a fun and easy short cruise from Seattle, maybe it would go from Seattle just down to San Francisco, or like stop in Astoria, Portland along the way, and then down to what would be first, San Francisco, LA, and then San Diego without having to do Ensenada or head into Mexico. Just kind of would make things interesting and more flexible. Anyways, the Vancouver ship, the Serenade of the Seas, it actually, they had the mechanics on board, and apparently the guests were in pretty good stead. The toilets were working, the lights were on, the food was being cooked, the bars were open. So I think everybody just availed themselves to a few cocktails at the bar, and eventually they were underway Monday evening. But of course, Royal Caribbean had to modify the itinerary a little bit because they were a day delayed, and so they ended up having to cancel their port in Sitka, which I don't know much about Sitka other than from being on The Proposal, the movie with Ryan Reynolds, Canadian born, and Sandra Bullock, who ironically in the movie played a Canadian who was working in America who was going to get deported because she didn't have her green card. Uh, Gotta love the irony on that. Angelo says it is highs of 85, which is 29.5, and lows of 23. So that's not much range at all. I mean, it's a little bit, but for that, you probably want to have air conditioning in your home. And I don't know if you do. I've got a portable air conditioning unit, but most houses in Canada don't come standard with air conditioning. John, I would say it's probably the same in the UK. Um, America, it's hard to say. It probably depends where you're from. Chicago, I'm thinking probably not standard, but let me know. Let me know if I'm wrong. Yeah, so anyways, the poop cruise became not too poopy. So that was good. Moving on, we have news from Las Vegas. They're reporting some pretty big hits in terms of tourism. Overall numbers are down. I always look like I'm like somehow hiding behind the camera naked because I do often wear strapless tops. I was actually thinking I should change the name of my channel to like she's not really naked or something, just out of a laugh. But anyways, y'all know I'm wearing clothes. Uh, Sidebar. Um, so yeah, tourism is down in Las Vegas, and we have gone from the days of ridiculously exorbitant prices, plus tax, plus a resort fee or a convenience fee. Like you want to use the hotel pool, you got to pay a resort fee. Like what is up with that? So now they are doing some pretty amazing deals. Um, with hugely discounted rates, and most of them or many of them are waiving the resort fees. So for example, the Stratosphere, which I don't know if that's a place you want to stay because it's not in a great location, does it have a certain cachet, also is on a fault line. So like all of Las Vegas is, well, most of the West Coast is. So do you really want to be in some tower 1,000 feet above the ground doing some thrill ride on a fault line? Thumbs up or thumbs down? I mean, for me, that's a hard no. I've been there before, and I haven't gone up the stratosphere because seriously. But I mean, I remember being there, sitting at the card table, and the dealers would be talking about, oh, one of the rides, like that one ride that used to do a teeter totter. So it would, if this is the tower, and it would do this, and then it would stop, and then this part of it would shoot out, and it would extend like I think it was 30 feet over the edge of the building, and it wasn't uncommon for it to get stuck. Now, this was many, many years ago, like call it 8 to 10 years ago. Um, but those things tend to stick with you, right? Like, not really going to forget that because the second you hear that, like, imagine being 1,000 feet in the air, stuck, hanging over the side of the building, and like waiting for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours for the mechanics and whoever else to come and rescue you and get you off of your perilous, perhaps upcoming death. Like you're gonna remember that, right? So yeah, I don't think I would be doing that. Okay, Angelo said full house air conditioning. Okay, Chicago, everyone has air conditioning. Even old houses have multiple window AC units. Oh, interesting. I guess the heat waves and it can get quite muggy, being on the lakes. So that makes sense. Um, John is saying at the moment, night temperatures are around 15 to 16. Yeah, no air conditioning in this country, so sleeping can be tough. It's well daylight about 4:30 a.m., which makes it even worse. Yeah, 4:30 is about when the birds start chirping here. So there's been talk about us. I know you have British Standard Time, but there's been talk of us here in Canada switching from instead of having daylight regular standard time. So we're on Pacific Standard Time here in British Columbia, and then having Pacific Daylight Time or Daylight Savings Time. There's been talk, and I hope we will. It's all been voted on, and I think we've come to the agreement that we would shift to one, and that would be to stay on daylight savings time year round, which would be good. I mean, I don't need the birds chirping at what would effectively then be 3 in the morning. There's just no need to be light and bright at that time of the morning. Um, so yeah, that's definitely something. But interesting that your weather is pretty much the same. Makes for a nice night's sleep, that's for sure. And I know, like we're in July, in I mean, 2021 was when we had those wicked, wicked heat domes, and it was crazy, crazy hot. Um, which ironically is what the temperatures would be like in Vegas probably right now. But that was June 2021, and it was stupid hot, like up to almost 40, like in the mid 30s, which is hot for us. But now, I mean, it's coolish, it's comfortable. It could be a little bit warmer, but yeah. Um, New channel name. Oh, yeah. I don't know where you come up with this stuff. I mean, you make me laugh, but you're crazy. So Angela says, yes, he would. He would do that crazy ride on top of the stratosphere. John says no. Yeah, I agree with John. I'm definitely a hard no on that one. So moving on, so in Stratosphere, so going back to the Vegas sales, Stratosphere, they have got rates right now of $50 a night, 49, but let's just round it up because that's what we do. We're human. And I'm not trying to sell you on this. You book it if you want to. I don't care. I'm just letting you know. So Sunday to Thursday rates are $50 a night. Friday and Saturday nights, they're only $100 a night. And that's pretty much every night now through to the end of August, sorry, August 28th. So the Labor Day long weekend. And that includes $25 in daily dining credits. I mean, there's terms and conditions, blah, blah, blah. So you'll need to check the websites for all the details on this. But those prices do include all taxes. Now, if you want to stay somewhere more mid-strip, or no, maybe not mid-strip, but more where all the action is, at the MGM, they've got rates starting at $110. That includes the resort fee, but that doesn't include the taxes. And then flashing across the street, kitty corner, the Excalibur or the Luxor, those rates start at 58. I mean, those are older properties for sure. But the Luxor does have very spacious rooms. So that is something to be said for that, because it's got that, it's pyramid, right? So it's kind of a weird configuration. And so you get a little bit more space in the room. So for $60 a night, I mean, you can't go wrong. Also, the MGM has some promotions where they're offering you book a 2-night stay and you get a free show. So that's basically like $110 value. So that's really good. Um, and then if you want to be downtown in the heart of the action, which personally, if I was going to go again, I would probably be more inclined to go to sort of old Vegas, the Fremont Street, where things are a little bit cheaper. I mean, Vegas is still Vegas, but I think you can get a lot better deals on Fremont Street, and certainly some good hotel deals. The Golden Nugget was renovated, I think, about 5 or 8 years ago. And it's in a good location right on the strip, of the Fremont Strip. So, and then they've got a package right now. So a Sunday to Thursday. Oh, and I think, shoot, I didn't write it down. I think this was either 2 nights or 3 nights. So I think it was 2 nights for 339. So $340 American for the stay, and up from there. But this included your 2-night stay, the resort fee, a $40 per day breakfast credit, a $40 per day lunch credit, $40 spa credit, and a $40 pool credit. So that's not bad at all. So if you are thinking about going to Las Vegas, I mean, it's going to be hot, 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 but at least you're getting it for a pretty reasonable price right now. But the heat, it's a dry heat. And the resorts, the casinos are air conditioned. The problem with that, I have found, I mean, I've been there in the summer before because sometimes, the casinos are calling you. But I have found that that's usually when I'm almost guaranteed to get sick by the end of the trip, because you come outside and you've got that dry, well, regardless if it's dry, because it's not like air conditioning is going to be humid. But you have that hot heat, and then you go into the casino and it's nice and cold, but you're constantly doing that extreme if you're, you know, casino hopping, and it isn't particularly good on your system, in my opinion, or at least that's what I've experienced. Bali. So Bali has they implemented a tourism tax in February of last year, so February 2024. It's only $9 American, and it has similar to VisitaX, the Mexican Quintana Roo or Cancun Mine Riviera tax. It's mandatory, but it's not being enforced. Um, so, s- so they're saying like in 2024, only about 35% of tourists actually paid it. And in 2025 so far this year, I mean, even though not everyone's paying it, it's bringing in huge amounts of revenues, which they can then use to um, eh, preserve the culture of the area as well as build the infrastructure and basically offset any costs or impacts of tourism. So far this year, they've raised the equivalent of basically $10 million US um, on this tax. Uh, but like I said, not everybody's paying it, and they're getting kind of frustrated by it because what's the point of having it if it's sort of a well, some people pay it, some people don't. It's worth noting that like Visa tax, it is directly tied to your passport, and there was an interview done with the governor of Bali recently, asking him, what kind of steps they were considering taking for non-payment. And he talked about things like implementing fines, or denying people entry to certain attractions, and even denying entry into the country. So it's interesting to see with these taxes where where administrators are going to set the bar in terms of punishment for non-compliance. Um, and like, really, do you want to be in a foreign country where you haven't paid a fine that or a fee that's mandatory? I don't think I want to find out what that experience would be like. I'd rather go up the stratosphere and ride that stupid ride than go to a foreign country and not pay their mandatory tax and find out how that goes. Um, no, I probably still wouldn't do the stratosphere, but you get my point. So moving on from that, Cabo has implemented a new tax, and this is called, what's it called? And Embrace It is the name of theirs. This is for guests who are visiting Baja California, and anybody who is arriving there for 24 hours or more. So if you're there on a cruise, it's not going to impact you. But if you are um, going there on a vacation, unless you're a resident, you have to pay. I couldn't find anywhere in the terms and conditions or the Q&A that stated that guests or tourists of a certain age would be exempt. It basically said the only people who are exempt are residents. So yeah, if you're visiting, whether you're 6 months, 6 years, or 60 years, you're gonna have to pay this fee. It is 470 pesos, which is roughly on today's exchange the equivalent of 25 US or 35 Canadian. It started July 1st, and again, it isn't to the point. This one's more confusing even. Um, it's not as bad as Visitax or the Bali tax, because they've actually had some tourism boards who have come out and said, "No, we're not going to enforce this. No, it's not required." So what's the answer, right? That being said, again, it's directly tied to your passport, so they know if you've paid it or not. They also know if you've entered the country or not previously. Like, it's all digitized. It's all in the computer. And then, there's been talk about what would happen for, again, for non-compliance. If you haven't paid it, then, what would happen? And I haven't really seen any talk about, they might detain you, they might delay you. I haven't seen anything like that. I have read something about a fine. Let me just get this number. So, the number that was bandied about as a fine for not paying this fee, you have to pay it before arrival, prior to arrival. So the only number that I've seen thrown around is a fine of $1,200 American. So this is equates with our exchange rate again as of this morning to $1,642 per person per occurrence. So this is in effect July 1st. If you were to go later this month, family of four, and you go and you don't pay either upon checking when you go to leave the airport or upon return on the next trip, family of four, you could be sitting there with a fine potentially of US $4,800. I didn't do the conversion on that into Canadian. I know it's a lot of money. I mean, 5 grand basically for not paying this. And not, there's been no confirmation of that amount. Um, Oh, and Tammy's saying, so she sent the link. Oh, there we go. She sent the link for the Cabo tax to her clients, and it was about 33 Canadian. Yeah, I mean, it's 470 Mexican pesos. So it's just going to depend on the exchange rate of the day. So it could vary a little bit either way. But you want to make sure that you're using the correct link. I know with the Visitax, there were tons of fake sites that were out there for paying this Quintana Roo, the state of Quintana Roo, Cancun Mine Riviera visitor tax. And I mean, and I stupidly, the first time I went to pay it, I clicked the wrong link. And I think I paid $50 or $45 or something per person. Should have been less than half of that. But we all get duped sometimes, right? So I'm just saying, be careful, and make sure that you're using the correct tourism tax link. Ironically, it's all being handled by Travel Corp, which is a Canadian company in Ontario. Same company, incidentally, that is managing payments for Visitax. And I guess if you got a company that's built and set up to take these payments internationally from visitors coming from around the world, it makes sense to use them in other parts of Mexico when implementing these taxes. But it's sort of like, okay, well, why is Mexico using a Canadian company to collect these funds? Didn't make sense at first, but I guess when you look at it that way, it does. Personally, and I'm with Dee Dee the dog. I posted this on the community posts of YouTube the other day, and like Dee Dee the dog, I am of the unpopular opinion that this is an okay thing. I think if we're going to go to these tourism areas and look, I'm going to be drinking water. I'm going to be drinking not water, beer, wine, whatever. I'm going to be showering once, maybe twice, sometimes even 3 times a day, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm there for work, get up in the morning, have a shower, go and do site inspections, have a shower, have a group dinner, and probably dancing. Probably have a shower before I go to bed. So that's a lot of water consumption, as well as, the power. These resorts, they've got, the power to run all the air conditioning units in the individual rooms, all of that kind of stuff. So from a power and a water perspective, it's a draw on the system that wouldn't otherwise be there. Now, you could argue that a lot of the jobs wouldn't be there without these resorts and stuff like that, or tourist attractions, tours that people are doing, that kind of thing. It's a good source of employment. But if I look at what they've done in Cancun, not necessarily with the visit tax, but if you look at the infrastructure developments that they've done over the past few years, with more planned along the way. I mean, the train Maya, the Mayan train, which goes from way down south up to Merida and to uh, Sedamal? No, the place where they've got the bioluminescence lakes. I forget what that area is called. Um, so you've got this whole train set up, which makes it very convenient, very easy to go and see different areas. Um, so there's that. The highway or the bridge that they're building from sort of, you've got mainland Cancun, and then you've got the peninsula. And this is where a lot of the workers for the resorts work. So for them to get to the resorts over on the peninsula, they've got to go up and around the airport route or through central downtown Cancun, not where a lot of the tourists go, like the centro, the town, and then up and around that way. Because, Kukulkan Avenue is this way and that way, and that's it. It's not like there's two roads, there's one road. So this new bridge is going from the central, the town area, right across, and it's coming out by Plaza Kukulkan, ironically, um, which will mean that from there, and it's going to have a bike lane and all kinds of stuff. So that should free up a lot of traffic because not only is it congestion for them to get to work, but it's also adding congestion for the tourists who are trying to get to and from their hotel. So that's a good thing. What is that? The sargassum? I mean, there's millions of dollars being spent on that, and then trying to figure out, do they harvest it? Can they prevent it somehow? What can they do to keep the beaches looking good whilst, I mean, they got rid of they implemented the rule where they're no longer allowed to simply dig a hole and bury the sargassum in the beach. That's not allowed. So that's a good thing because that just caused the sandflies didn't really go away. The stink was still there. It's just like burying garbage, right? But they're working on quite a few things. I think Howard, had mentioned talk about them using the sargassum, converting it and using it for bricks, which could be used for building. So there's lots of potential with it, but research and development to create those situations all costs money. So yeah, there's a lot that's going on. Also, you recall many, many years ago, there was a sinkhole, and I want to say it was near Tammy. Maybe you remember this. Um, it was a sinkhole on the main highway. So again, highway from Cancun. Which way? I'll do it from this way. So Cancun to Playa del Carmen to Tulum, all along there. Before Playa del Carmen, I think around Puerto Morelos, as they would say on the travel shows, there was a sinkhole, and it was massive. And it basically, one of the lanes was completely destroyed, and so they had to divert. So everybody was going, like, it was like one-way traffic on we'll call that the west side of the highway. And then they rebuilt it. Classic Mexican construction. It was done in like 24, 36 hours. I was amazed. But they had repaved a detour, done. But it was sort of a quick fix. And so this year, I know that they are planning to uh, properly fix that. And that's possibly going to cause some delays, but nonetheless, it's also going to cost money. And again, that's what the Visitax stuff is going to go towards. So I don't think it's a bad thing. Again, both Cancun and I only recently learned on my last trip to Cabo that as much as Cabo, as I said last week, Cabo was a fishing village, but it was also, the government, the federal government, put a bunch of money into it, as well as they had around the same time, actually, as they decided to develop Cancun as a tourist destination. And so they're putting the money into it, but they you it's not just a one-time planning expense, right? You got to keep maintaining it and ongoing with it as the areas build and build and build. Also, with Cabo, you've got a lot of expats, or like, Canadians, Americans who have bought property down there. And so again, you've got the local residents who are working in the hospitality industry, and they're kind of being pushed out further and further. So, how do you manage that so that you can still have your employees working at the resorts and it's not taking them 2 hours of transportation, or like in transit each day to get to and from work, 2 hours each way. Um, yeah. So, like I said, I don't think that the cabo tax concept is a bad thing. I mean, does it suck that it's gonna for a couple of two people, $70 now extra Canadian, to take a trip to Cabo? Yeah, it sucks, but I mean, it is what it is. And I mean, we've seen a lot of the hotels, not the hotels per se, but the areas have implemented environmental taxes and stuff like that. And that's kind of onesie twosies, you pay $2 or $3 a night, but you pay that directly to the hotel. So, there's all these taxes and stuff, but again, it's like it's just going to offset the impact of us all going to these fabulous places. So I don't know. I don't really have a problem with that. Let me know if you what you think on it. But like I said, I tend to be a rule follower again. I don't see any need to break any rules going into a foreign country. So I'm probably would be the one who would pay the tax. And if nobody asked me for it, oh well, no problem. But I wouldn't want to risk, even if I was just delayed, and kind of had somebody come, no, 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 no. I think I wouldn't want to be delayed. Like, even that would just be upsetting because once, as soon as you land, you get the whole go to the airport, you wait, you finally get to board, you get on board, and you wait, you take off, you fly. And I mean, for us, maybe it's different if you live in Texas, but as a British Columbian, as a person flying from Vancouver, I mean, I'm talking 4.5 hours to fly to Cabo, longer for Puerto Vallarta, 6.5, 7 hours to get to Cancun. So like you gotta wait all that time, and then you finally land, and then you line up, go through security, and then somebody's pulling you aside because you didn't pay the 20 or $30 the last time you were here, or the last two times or three times or four times that you were here. How long does that take to sort out? Do they make you pay the cash right then, right there? Do you pay it with credit card? Do you have to have cash? I just don't think I'd wanna I wouldn't want to start my vacation that way. It would really take away that whole, like, "Yay, I'm here," to turn it around to so I don't know. What do you think? Do you think these taxes are fair? Do you think they're justified? I'm curious. Um, and that is it. That's all I have for you today. So a little bit of this and that going on in the news. Um, Got some exciting news that I will share next week on some travel developments. I'm going to save that for next week. Um, and it is Amazon Prime Days right now. So if you need to do any shopping, I have in my description below a bunch of my favorite travel items, like my favorite new suitcase. Love, love, love it. As well as some other regular travel items that I always take. So definitely check those out. And it's Amazon Prime Days, so maybe it's on for a good price. And what is it? What's that? Oh, Camel, Camel, Camel. If you're looking at Amazon prices and you want to see if it is the lowest out of the past 90 days, 6 months, whatever, go to camelcamelcamel.com, I think it is, and you can enter the code for the item that you're looking at, and it'll tell you if it is the lowest price option or not. Oh, the other thing I wanted to share with you guys that I learned is, I think I told you guys about this before, that with your currencies on your calculator, especially with the iPhone, you can do currency conversions. So you can see here, it says Canadian versus US dollars. And this works. I don't know if you have to log in the morning or it just takes the conversion based on the last time you used the conversion. But I turned my phone I put my phone on airplane mode, turned off the Wi-Fi, and it would still do the conversion. So if you are in destination and you're, especially the Dominican, because it's like $1 is $1 is 40 Dominican pesos or something. It's confusing. And so even pesos can get me like stuffed up from time to time because uh it's just, you're having a beer or two and you're trying to do math on the go. And I'm a calculator girl. I grew up in a calculator world, and that's what it is. I freely admit. So it's just nice to know that that is an option for you. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. John's saying, yeah, that EU travel tax coming soon to the Brits. Look on it as a processing fee. Yeah, it is what it is. And that's a weird one because that's been on coming in for 3-4 years now. It's like, oh, it's definitely coming in next year. Well, we're not sure. Yeah, definitely coming in. Hold on, put the brakes. It's fine. At least with them, they're not sort of implementing it and then not tracking it or making sure that people have paid it. I think the thing that what they need to do, and I know that probably with Cancun and Cabo, they're probably thinking, you know, we don't want to enforce this tax because we don't want to deter tourists. I mean, tourism in Mexico is at an all-time high. I really don't think that anyone's going to be deterred by having uh, somebody checking to see if they've paid the fee. Um, I think they just need to be clear about it and start enforcing it and saying, either that or just get rid of it. But or make it on a donation basis, but don't sort of leave this threat sort of looming and have it tied to the passport because if they decide 6 months and if you're saying, oh no, but they would never do that because it would deter tourism. I will reflect back to you on last year when they decided to crack down on taking multiple devices with you to Mexico. And this was specifically Cancun Airport that they were clamping down. If you had an iPad and a laptop, that was too much. You're only allowed to import one computing device. So a Kindle reader was okay with a laptop, but an iPad could be a computing device and a laptop. No, they would make you pay duty on one of them as if you were with the assumption that you were planning on selling one of them. Never really had to worry about that with mine because my iPad, I think, is like the third version that ever came out. It's oldie old. But I mean, I only use it for watching Netflix, right? So it does the job. Um, but nonetheless, they did have that in effect, and it was pretty harsh, because there were people that were having to pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars if they brought in more devices than they were allowed. Um, and I mean, okay, in fairness, they've kind of backed off on that, but, you know, it I'm just saying they could randomly decide that now is the day that they're gonna start enforcing it, and what's that gonna look like? So on that happy note, oh man. Yeah, so that's all I have for you for this week. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for all your comments. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and hit that like button. And hopefully we'll get some sun coming up this week and a bit warmer temperatures. John, I hope you guys keep your temperatures okay and not too hot. Angelo, looks like you're cut. Well, you got air conditioning, so you're good to go. Tammy, I don't know if you have air conditioning or not. I hope you're doing all right. As well, to Christine and Angela, Elizabeth and all of you who tend to watch on the replay, thanks for tuning in. And I hope you're all doing well and enjoying summer. And we will be back next Wednesday. So hope to see you then. In the meantime, have a great day, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Wednesday.